Today, we're visiting Nepal for 14 days and seeing if Everest Base Camp is your trip of a lifetime, with Sherpas, villages, and yaks, views that take your breath away, and hiking at altitudes that definitely takes your breath away. But this trek has been labeled as overcrowded, with too much hassle, and I experienced one thing that my research missed that almost ruined the trip. But the magic is still there, if you know how to do it. So let's head to Nepal, with it all starting in the capital, Kathmandu. To help with jet lag, get out into the city and see the Monkey Temple, one of the oldest Buddhist sites in Nepal. The old royal palace at Durbar is the original royal seat and full of things you've probably never seen before. Most striking are the Hindu temple cremation ceremonies, where upwards of 1,200 pounds of wood is needed to cremate a single body. Afterwards, the remains are released into the Bagmati River. Thamel is where you'll likely stay, eat, and get last-minute gear, but avoid getting critical pieces of gear here, such as sleeping bags. The next day, you'll fly from either Kathmandu or Ramachhap Airport to Lukla. Kathmandu is much easier. Wherever you fly from, try to sit on the left side of the plane, as that's where the mountain views will be. Today we're headed out from Ramachhap Airport to the world's most dangerous airport, Lukla. With mountains all around, there are no go-arounds or second chances for the pilot. They must make the landing, and often land with the wind dangerously at their tail. All on a runway that's only 1,700 feet long and sloped at 15 degrees. Over 56 people have died here, and that's just since 2004. And as I say these words, I can't believe we did this trip. Over the next 8 days, we'll head from Lukla at 9,300 feet, all the way up to Everest Base Camp at 17,598 feet. With stops in the villages of Phakding, Namche Bazaar, Chengboche, Dingboche, Lobuche, and Gorakshep. And if that's too much to remember, don't worry, we have a free itinerary that covers everything, including alternate, less traveled routes. The first day of hiking from Lukla to Phakding is mostly downhill and simple. Future days will be much harder. And don't forget, in a few minutes we'll go over something that almost ended this trip. Something we never saw coming. Once you get past Lukla, do not eat meat, as everything is carried in by porter or animal, so food safety can't be guaranteed. Let's stay at our first tea house. At the very first tea house, everyone is issued a very small and very cute dog that will warn you when a Yeti is near.
What's up, buddy?
We've been up since midnight, traveling to Ramachhap Airport for the morning flight to Lukla, so it's time to rest. The sun can be intense here. Although high in elevation, Nepal sits at the same latitude as Miami, Florida, so it can be warmer than you think. When walking at lower altitudes, we wish we had brought non-waterproof trail runners, as they're lighter and more breathable. Save the boots for up higher. New food is always a reason to visit a new place, and Nepal does not disappoint. They somehow even perfected French fries. And for more food later, we'll be going to the world's highest bakery at 16,174 feet. After a large first climb, you'll come to the trek's largest town, Namche Bazaar. This is your last chance to get any gear, medication, or cash. It's also your first chance to play volleyball, but I can barely walk up a flight of stairs, so I'm definitely going to skip that. As I finish this sentence, you're going to hear a person cough. It's called the Khumbu cough, after the region we're in. You'll likely develop it too. The head of your bed is usually by a colder window, so sleep with your feet towards the window to stay warmer. Today we're hiking around Namche Bazaar to get used to the altitude. But it's clear to me after yesterday's long climb and today's hiking, something is wrong with my body. Remember when I said I experienced something that almost ruined the trip? Well, yesterday and today, I have to take 3 times as many rest breaks as I usually do, and my lungs are burning in a way I have never experienced before. I have years of experience in the high mountains of the Sierra Nevada, the Alps in Europe, and the Rocky Mountains. My lungs shouldn't be struggling at this lower altitude. At this rate, reaching base camp at 17,000 feet feels almost impossible. We look up the air quality and it's been horrible all the way since Kathmandu, as you can see here in Ramachhap, and in the higher valleys. A normal air quality would be around 25 to 50 on the Air Quality Index, or AQI. Since arriving in Nepal, we've been in AQIs of 250 to 400. Way higher. These are numbers that are harming you in the moment, and it's the reason I'm in trouble. It's the month of April, and the smoke is from thousands of farmers in the south purposely burning their fields after their harvest, and also from uncontrolled wildfires. After considering my symptoms, I head to a Namche Bazaar pharmacy and ask for something to aid in lung function. They state this is a common problem and give me a medicine to open up my chest, especially the bronchial tubes. The effect is almost immediate, and I began to hike more like I normally would. In all, I would not come to Nepal in April when these fires are going on. I would wait for the summer monsoon rains to put out all of the fires and hike here in October and November instead. But for now, we're here, and Everest Base Camp is still 5 challenging days ahead. So let's head to the next village. As we go higher, it gets colder and our sleeping bags become more important. We'll go over gear later in the video. Right now, let's review where we're going on the map. It's on this day where you'll likely go higher than you ever have before. Sarah and I are both physical therapists, and later we'll share with you our tips on how to prepare for this trip, so you don't end up tired and sleepy like this guy. Also, for these trips, if you want to save money, save time, and learn from 2 professionals how to stay healthy, be sure to join our newsletter. After this altitude, all the stoves are fueled by yak dung. There's no more wood, and stoves are only lit in the evening. After Dingboche, the smoke cleared, which is good because we measure our blood oxygen level and it's only 79%. Normal is 97 to 100%. The 79% may explain why, for the rest of the trip, I kept hallucinating Yeti sightings. At Thukla Pass is your reminder of what's been lost in this region. Each monument represents one person who never made it home. But one of the happiest places on the trek is the world's highest bakery cafe, where we rested, ate carrot cake, and had coffee, all above 16,000 feet. We're now in the final valley, and the two mountains that bring you into Everest are Pumori, on the left of the shot, and Nuptse, seen here. Gorakshep is the last village. There's no running water here, so be ready to buy a few bottles. You'll drop your gear here and keep going, admiring the mountains and listening to the ice fall in the valley. You've just hiked for days, higher than you ever have before, with 12,000 feet of total elevation gain. You develop the Khumbu cough, and your blood oxygen is only 75%. But you have stories you will remember forever. But the problems weren't over just yet. It was later that night when I walked back to Gorakshep. I woke up at midnight and I had a splitting headache, but it wasn't altitude sickness. What it was is that pretty much everybody over the altitude of 4,500 meters, but especially bigger guys like me, I'm 230 pounds, 6'1", can get a little apneic, meaning a little shallow in breathing, and it's due to pressures. But there's something that I knew from our physical therapy training, Sarah and I's, that if you did pursed lip breathing, it gets carbon dioxide out and oxygen in very quickly. So I did that. And what pursed lip breathing is just breathing in and then blowing out like you're blowing out a candle, like just do that for a full deep breath. I did that for about 3 minutes and the headache went completely away. A little bit more about the fires that you saw. So all of this footage was back in 2024, did the trip back then, but I edited it in April of 2025 and I checked April of 2024 versus April of 2025, and it was the exact same story. And if I remember right from my research from before, this fire, wildfire, and farmer fire situation has really been a thing 3 out of the past 5 years. Like I said in the video, I wouldn't go there again in April if I had a choice, but if you do end up going, my recommendation is just to get out of Kathmandu as soon as you can, get up to Namche, and start the acclimatization process at Namche, and get to Dingboche as quick as you can. So basically just expedite the trip. Don't spend too much time in Kathmandu, just really get on with the trip. Real quick, I said to save money, save time, and be healthier to join our newsletter. And money-wise, Sarah just saved us $2,000 each this summer on our flights by just changing one single thing about how we search for tickets. We'll go over that in our newsletter. We'll also go over how we use our credit card points system, which changes all the time, to best save money for these trips. Note, we haven't started the newsletter yet. We're going to start it when we hit 300 people, and we're going to shoot for the newsletter to be read in only 5 minutes. So our physical therapy advice for how to do this trip. Ideally, 6 months out that you're going to do this trip. We shot for 150 minutes a week of cardiovascular exercise, half of which was high intensity, and 3 days of resistance training, so lifting weights. On the days that we were lifting weights and focusing on our legs, we made sure that eccentric step downs were a part of the program. They're very good at targeting the kind of stresses that you'll find in the mountains. We use the inspiratory muscle trainer that you saw in the video 3 times a week for 20 repetitions and slowly increase the resistance each week. The inspiratory muscle trainer does nothing but strengthen the muscles that you use to breathe, so we think it's an important thing when you're going to high altitudes. In our newsletter, we'll go over deeper topics, but I do kind of want to hear from you about what you want to hear about how to prepare for this trip. So if you have anything specific, let me know in the comments. Okay, so let's talk about gear. I actually have another YouTube channel that has almost 2 million views just about outdoor gear. And other than not packing the light trail runners that I knew I should have packed, we pretty much nailed the packing list for Nepal in April. Now, gear is just a huge topic. That's why I have a lighter pack link linked below. It really spells out all of the gear that I brought and the reasons why I brought it. So in the video, I highlighted the sleeping bag. It's very important. It needs to be a wide, roomy cut for whatever your body shape is. And the bag I chose was around 20 degrees Fahrenheit or -10 degrees Celsius. It's an accurately rated bag from Western Mountaineering. Always look at the comfort rating versus the limit rating when you're looking at sleeping bags. Another thing about gear is rubber bottom lodge shoes. Don't bring lodge shoes that don't have a rubber bottom where it's just fabric. Definitely going into some of these bathrooms, you're going to want a bottom of your shoe that is rubber. The last thing about gear that I'm going to talk about is the miniature lantern right here. It was the star of the show. Most light bulbs, in fact, I don't think any light bulbs in any of the guest houses worked at all. So this little lantern right here is really good for ambient light. You can use the headlamp that you're going to bring, but this just worked better for Sarah and I, just so we could see things and just kind of have light that was more normal. Another tip is when you're measuring your oxygen through your finger, when you use these little pulse oximeters, a lot of the guides would put it on your finger very quickly, get the first numbers, and then rip it off your finger. Don't do that. A lot of times a pulse oximeter needs a little bit of time to get a good signal. So see here on the side how it's going up and down rhythmically in a nice rhythm. That's what you want to see before you trust the numbers. Or even some of them have a little waveform on the bottom that if it's nice and steady, that's when you can trust the numbers. Okay, 2 important omissions from this trip. Tengboche Monastery is beautiful, but for some reason it was closed. I don't know why. So we didn't really get good shots of Tengboche Monastery, but it is definitely worth the stop. Also, Kalath Pathar, there is a hill above Gorak Shep that you usually climb starting around midnight or 2 a.m., something like that, and you go up there to watch the sunrise for Mount Everest. Like I said, I had the problem at midnight, and plus Sarah and I know from being in the mountains that sunrises that are happening behind, in this case, Mount Everest, usually aren't as striking as sunsets onto mountains. So we just kind of skipped that. We got feedback from 2 Australians and 1 Dutch guy that it kind of was an okay thing to see, but it really wasn't a highlight of the trip. Okay, let's talk about altitude sickness prevention. Very simply, I took 200 milligrams of ibuprofen in the morning. There's some evidence that that's a good thing. I took Diamox twice a day, once in the morning, once in the evening. And some people, although I didn't do this, and it's a conversation for your doctor, but some people take Ventolin to help them deal with difficulty at altitude. Okay, speaking of meds, I strongly encourage you to take cold medicines or multi-symptom medicines from home that you're used to and that you like. You are very likely going to get under the weather at some point during this trip, just due to all the stress that's happening in your body. It's not really a trip where like, hey, I'm going to hang out, I'm going to take this day off. So bring those meds that help you through the trip. You just flew probably 10,000 miles to do the trip. You need some of those things, like for me, Dayquil, that really just help multiple symptoms. Another small management thing is electrolytes, especially down low. But even through the whole trip, bringing electrolytes is key to keeping your performance high. Another key thing is take pictures of your passport, your visas, and your travel insurance and share it with someone else in your group. One of the biggest things I wanted to talk about that makes this trip great is 2 things in Namche that totally surprised me. One was the Sherpa Museum, but especially the Mountain Everest Documentation Center. The gentleman that runs this makes a big mistake. He doesn't let you take photos, and he should, because if he let you take photos, you could see how awesome these exhibits were about climbing, about kind of local heroes, local Sherpa culture, the chronological progression of the Khumbu region. It was so good. it really surprised me. Just go to this thing. No one ever really talks about it. Okay, so should you use a trekking company? It's definitely more expensive if you use a trekking company, but I think you should, especially if it's your first time, or if you're like me, you had camera equipment. I'm definitely using a guide, but they also are really good about coordinating the bus trip to Ramachop, which if you can fly out of Kathmandu, do that. Ramachop is a 4-hour bus trip there and 4 hours back. It wasn't the most enjoyable thing, but it's one of those travel things that you just roll with. But Sherpa guides are also really good at coordinating flight tickets. And if anything goes wrong, and I'm not even saying that's a huge possibility, but if something goes wrong, they have all of the language ability, they know where everything's at, and they know how to help in bad situations. Next, when you're in Kathmandu, so go back to Kathmandu, if you have a choice between Google Maps and Apple Maps always did a better job at navigating. Google Maps sometimes took us in weird directions down streets that weren't there. So try to use Apple Maps if somebody in the group has an Apple phone. So let's talk about money heading up the valley. I would take around $200 to $300 US for just stuff and for extras on the meals if you wanted to. And then remember, if you're a little bit short, when you get back to Namche, there are always ATMs there that you can easily get Nepali rupees from. So don't sweat money at all. Next, don't take a shower right before bed. You will have wet hair. It's not the most pleasant thing to fall asleep with wet hair. So yeah, don't do that. And also from like a kind of a stink perspective, really lean on wool underwear, wool shirts. It really helps with the stink factor when you're traveling for multiple days. I brought these things called dude wipes to kind of clean crevices every 3 days or so. But Sarah also discovered you could shave your legs with dude wipes. So if you want to do that, use dude wipes. When passing a monument on the trail, always pass it to the left. It's a sign of respect. It's a custom. It's just what's done in the country. If you happen to not know that or pass it on the right or have to pass it on the right, no one's going to yell at you. It's not a massive deal, but just generally as a sign of respect, pass the monuments on the left. Okay, this one's a little personal, but at night, because I knew I was taking the Diamox and that it's cold, I brought a pee bottle to pee in. Going to the bathrooms, the whole operation of getting up, standing up, getting your clothes on, walking out the creaky door, closing the creaky door, going to the bathroom, it'll wake Sarah up. I thought it would wake Sarah up. So I just brought one just for the quickness and just to kind of keep her from waking up. Also talking about bathrooms, guest houses like to turn in between people staying in the rooms, like to turn the water off at the wall. So if you walk into a guest house and the sink doesn't work or the toilet doesn't work, they've likely just turned the water off at the wall. So just turn it back on. Earplugs, bring one pair, bring 2 pairs as a backup, and know that for some reason, 2 Nepali dogs are elected every night to bark at each other all night. So you're going to need them. Just make sure that you have them. Speaking of dogs, a cultural thing, the Sherpa culture, they don't treat dogs like Westerners do. So if you're approaching dogs, you're coming at dogs, your guide may or may not, depending, kind of wonder, hey, why are you interacting with that animal? So just be aware of that. So insurance is kind of a big deal on this trip. You need high altitude rescue insurance, not like insurance for mountaineers where you're using specialized equipment, but you'll see in the literature that you can't use crampons, ropes, harnesses, things like that. So be sure to get insurance with high altitude coverage. It seemed to me in my research that the Europeans had many more choices. I struggled as a person from the US to find anything like reasonably priced, but I finally found TravelX insurance. So check them out if you want a pretty good rate and the coverage seemed to be good. Obviously, I never used it. I'm glad I didn't, but check them out. Okay, Sarah and I are all about helping you take trips of a lifetime because that's what we want too. We take our trip of a lifetime. We want to learn from it, help you take that same trip and just have a better vacation life, more memories, just something you can reflect on at the end of your life and say, hey, that was something so good. Okay. So if you want to see more of that, click into this video right here.